So when somebody is considering a career and have been diagnosed with ADHD, there's a couple of things that come to mind that one should consider. In people's lives, whether you're either just starting out in a career or you're in a career change, there are some stigmas that go along, and it might be something, honestly, that people do struggle with. And so I'm going to touch on these. They're not really talked about a lot, but I find that a lot of people that I work with struggle with high absenteeism, whether it's in a college atmosphere or a career they're in. And then they also struggle with interpersonal conflict. And so what I mean by that is that they could be in a career or in a group work activity if they're still in college, and they might struggle with how they are presenting themselves, the information that's coming out them, how they process it, and it can often trigger them to either feel low self-esteem or sometimes ignite anger, which then comes out, and they come across as being difficult to work with. Another thing that comes out, and this is whether you're in academics or on the job, is a big one that I like to talk about a lot, and that's transitioning. People that I work with a lot lose a lot of time transitioning. And again, I can relate it back to a college atmosphere when they are transitioning from subject to subject, when they have a lot of things to study about. They might have a paper to write, and then they have to study for an exam. And when they're transitioning, it's an opportunity for them to get distracted. Same thing happens in the workforce. They have many projects and they have a lot of different duties. Transitioning from one task to another can be very, very time consuming with a loss of time. And so I like to talk about that. I'm going to talk two other things very quickly, and those are mistakes. Because many people with ADHD are in a hurry because they might be anxious, or they tend to process things slower and get distracted. Oftentimes, their first draft of anything they do, it might be full of mistakes. And so I work with clients to talk about that. What can they put in place to make sure that those mistakes that they know are there? And I would tell you 9 out of 10 times that I hand a paper back to somebody, and it's usually via Skype, and say, look at this, and they have had time to rest in between writing a document, they will find the mistakes. And so we look at strategies for that. And then the last piece is dependability. And that's an accountability issue, but we work on a lot in careers and looking at it in the college setting. So if you're struggling with change in the workplace or discovering a job that's really meant for you, these are things to consider. And this is where we can talk through them and give strategies and tips of how to best present yourself. When you are looking for the pathway to the career that is meant just for you, a truly authentic career, here's some steps that I go over with my clients. The very first step is to design your personal purpose. Now, that takes some time to reflect and go on to the inner side. Some things to consider when you're looking at your personal purpose is to look at your history. Go back into your youth, your early childhood dreams. Those are some things that we talk about. It's a time to really get honest with yourself and to be in an area where it's quiet and you can almost be in a meditative state, that you're giving yourself that time to reflect on maybe what your personal purpose has been, is, or could be. And we start linking from the very beginning. After that, we'll start to look at your self-knowledge, your awareness. And it's really important to not only look at your faults, which so many clients that work with me start with, well, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, but I start jumping in and saying, wait, let's talk about your strengths first. And so in this process that I work with people, the steps, we start to identify what the interests are, what the skills are, what the aptitude is, how your personality factors into it, and any other accomplishments or accolades that you've had. And we work from there. And then we take a look at the challenges. And I'm not calling them weaknesses, I'm calling them challenges, because within those challenges, I am helping you walk through to find out resources, strategies, and techniques to be able to navigate around the challenges. Now, another thing to consider that I think a lot of people do not consider, especially when they're looking at their challenges, is they will say things like, I'm disorganized, I get upset easily. And another thing we take a look at is their biorhythms. Are you in a career path that is really meant for you? And I've worked with college students around this that kept failing out of college. They were taking 8 a.m. classes when really their best time of day was really 11, 12 to be getting in those key listening moments. They struggle with it already. So it's important, especially if you have ADHD, to look at your strengths, what you know works for you, and then navigate around your challenges with that. An example of a client that I had that we worked through his personal purpose has to do with a college student. And I can tell you a quick story of him, how he's failing in college. And through that failure, he ended up coming to me and now has a really bright future in Washington, D.C. So he was a student and had gone through 3 colleges and had failed out in all 3 colleges. Mind you, he had an ACT score above 30. So we're talking he was academically should have been okay with the programs he was choosing. The reason why he was failing out was because of, one, high absenteeism from his class. He had a B in a class, and it was an automatic fail because he had missed 1 too many classes. Then we talked about his getting honest with himself. When he had gotten to me, he had already failed through that particular college, went on to a community college, and the family thought, well, we'll make it easier for him, and he can get his grades up and he can go off to college. Well, he went to the community college and he failed out twice in a class that he had taken in high school. So he's in my office and we're talking, and I said, what do you know about yourself? What were your early childhood dreams? And we went through the process. We went to identify his interests and what he was good at. And in the end, it came up that he really had a passion for, ironically, cybersecurity, which is a hot field right now. And we got there through a process. And he was able to apply for the college, and he got in, not by his grades, but basically by a very long letter that he wrote, and kind of told his own story. And I helped him as well, and we got him into the college, and then we looked at his class load. And this is where the biorhythms came in for him. His family was very set on him taking these classes at 8 a.m. and going to bed at a certain time, and it just wasn't working for him. And so I begged with the parents that he give him 1 semester to choose a class that doesn't start before 10 a.m. Just once, let's give him some success. And then we monitored him. Well, long story short, he ended up graduating. He should have had 3 years. He graduated in 2 years, took summer courses, and with honors. And then went immediately into a graduate program in Washington, D.C., and became a apprentice or internship with a senator. And he's wrapping up his master's program, and his future is very bright for him in that career field. So that's a story of a biorhythm. Now I have one other story of a client that I had that was in college, and he was failing and just getting by and just not happy with himself. His family had come to me and asked me to help him initially with his academics. And we went through the academics, and his heart just was not into it. So again, we started looking at what his biorhythms were, what his workplace behavior was, his interest. And in the end, this was a guy that needed to help people. and he needed to help people on his time. And when he did, he would go above and beyond, and people really appreciated him, and he liked being appreciated. Now, he was not a morning person. He was not a noon person. This is a guy who is a night owl. And so we started looking at some fields for him where he could help people on his own time, have types of jobs where he could maybe go for a week and then have a week off, because he just needed to have a break in between when he would go and off. Well, in the end, we found out that the trucking industry is a really thriving place for employment right now, and the pay is incredible. So he went through a driving school there, passed it, and he is now currently employed as a CDL driver and very proud of himself, and he's happy, and he can afford his lifestyle now. So we need to consider all these things when considering what it is that is a right career path for somebody. And so it's not just a one-shot answer. It's very complex. We need to connect the dots. And when we do, sometimes we surprise ourselves. And the most important thing is when I surprise a client, and then I get to see how excited and happiness, passion, and purpose that comes through in their lives. I'd like to talk about something that's just a little bit controversial. And I'm going to take myself back about 11 years when I first started coaching. On the back of my business cards, I had proudly put, ADHD can be a gift. What is yours? Since then, I have been coming across some articles where people are really struggling with the ADHD and not seeing that as a gift. And I'd like to clarify myself, because what I was talking about initially is a lot of the clients that I worked with had a lot of energy. And yes, they can get themselves in trouble, but there are times when that energy, when that person that's just goes and is not tired, could be a real benefit. Then the other person that I'm going to talk about, which I really hadn't appreciated so much until recently, is that person that takes forever. The one that won't make that decision. Maybe they have ADHD, inattentive. Okay, that person can be really, really difficult at times to work with. And I can see how that could really bog down progress. But let's take a twist on both of these. The person with the ADHD, that's, the one that won't shut up, the one that is up all night long, coming up with ideas and nobody can reel them in. Okay, when you're up against a deadline, and say, the easy thing to say is marketing, and you need that idea person, you've got somebody in that room that can kind of quickly keep up with this person's ideas and document them. You could really benefit as a group for that out-of-box thinking that happens so much with that person that's just throwing out ideas, if you've got somebody that can be accountable and document them. The other thing too is when you're up against deadline, who better to ask than somebody who procrastinates? They're a pro at procrastinating, getting things done at the last minute. And so sometimes that happens in the real world, and it wasn't meant to happen because somebody procrastinated in something. Some opportunity came up, and maybe your business has something, it's a short deadline. They come to you and say, we've got this opportunity. Do we do it? Can we do it? And you turn to that person that has that bunny energy and probably ask them, do you want this? And they might get excited about something like that. So I think that that's where you can talk about ADHD being a gift in a career. And then let's go talk about the other one, the one that's not so obvious. And that is that person that is a slow processor. The one you're just wanting to just pull the information out of, come on, get ready, make a decision, get on with the story, put closure on it. I have come over the years to appreciate that person, because if you're somebody that's got a lot of energy and ideas, you're probably not crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And that person that's slower, that's methodical, is going to be your ally. And they are the one that is going to make you look polished. I know that I can use that in my life often. So those are two really great examples where I think ADHD can be a gift for you. I have parents that come to me when their student is in high school asking me if they would like me to work with their son or daughter, trying to choose what their career path is. And my reply back to them is a little mixed. And that is because I see career coaching for a high school student as really a collaboration, more as a coach collaboration with the family. There's a lot of dynamics going on when somebody's in high school, and they're still trying to discover who they are, what their true authentic self is, what path they're really interested in. And so the high schools do a nice job these days of putting students online and taking career interest inventories. My suggestion would be, if you have a son or a daughter that you feel needs some guidance around that, and that may be somebody who would change their mind quite often, they might get to college and take some very random classes that just don't make sense without some support, and that relationship with you want to keep, and like what I call it, keep it integrity, relationship between the parent and the child for the college. A coach is a really great way to come in and collaborate with the parent. I usually do at a younger age, once a month with the parent, and I let the student know that. And then we talk about what the best options are for that student at that time. I can tell you from my own personal story, I had a daughter that is very successful today. She went the college route, and I felt that she really needed to have a plan in place because she was so impulsive that she would just jump ship. Well, that did not work out for her, and she became very adamant about what she wanted to do, and we did some inventories, and she ended up doing a vocation. And to be quite honest with you, she is a very successful business owner today in that same vocation. And so my own perspective from a parent is to say, if you're looking for coaching for your son or daughter at the high school level for careers, call it a collaboration, because you're not really sure where they're going to go on their journey. And if you're open to the ideas, whether it's college with a very specific track or it's a vocation, and you just want them to have that defined personal purpose, it can be a really helpful tool for you, even as young as a junior in high school.